Well, hello, boys and girls, and welcome back to Creation Laboratory, where science and the Bible work together to illustrate truths of our marvelous Creator. Well, it is wonderful to be with you again. We will be having so much fun that I need twice the number of assistants to help me today. With me are brothers Elijah and Moses to help me with our experiments. Say hello, boys.
Hello.
Well, today we're going to look at some of the remarkable effects of salt. Salt is a very unique mineral in God's creation and can have a profound impact on its environment. Jesus told his disciples in Matthew 5:13, "You are the salt of the earth." Many sermons have been given postulating what Jesus meant by this statement. In its simplest form, the answer is quite obvious. Elijah, Moses, what is the first thing you think of when we use salt for?
Cooking.
I think it's to melt the snow when it's wintertime.
Well, those are both very, very useful things. I like putting a lot of salt on my food. An unhealthy amount, actually.
What?
Don't judge me. So, salt can make food taste better. It enhances the flavor of the food you put it on. And we, as the salt of the earth, should make the world we live in better. When we live according to God's plan, we share his love with others, and they are changed for the better. That, in a nutshell, is what Jesus meant when he said we should be the salt of the earth. But salt has a wide variety of uses. That could also be applied to Jesus' statement. It does far more than just taste good on French fries. So, let's take a look at some of these other properties of salt ourselves and see if we can learn more. Today we're going to be doing 2 experiments with salt. Moses, why don't you tell the children at home what we'll need for our first experiment?
We'll be needing a container of water, some salt, a hard-boiled egg, and something to stir with.
Oh, excellent. Well, for our first step, please carefully place the hard-boiled egg at the bottom of our container of fresh water.
Okay.
Well, so our egg is sitting at the bottom of our beaker, and it is now time to form a hypothesis. Boys, in a moment we will add salt to our water. What do you think will happen to the egg when we do this?
It'll peel.
Peel. Elijah?
I think the fresh water will turn to salt water and the liquid densities would change, so the egg would start floating.
I think you can take my job. I also think the egg is going to taste better. And you, children, at home, what do you think will happen? Well, I think it's time to test our hypothesis. Moses, go ahead and pour that container of salt into our beaker.
All of it?
Yes.
Okay. Oh my.
Whoa. Now carefully stir the water until the salt dissolves, and let's see what happens. Try not to hit the egg while you stir. It's like a tornado. But an eggy tornado. Well, would you look at that? The egg floated to the surface. Very interesting. You see, by adding salt to water, we change its density. Density is how closely the molecules in something are gathered together. And the egg was more dense than the fresh water, so it sank to the bottom. But when we added salt, the water's density is increased, making the molecules more closely packed together. Because the egg is now less dense than the salt water, it floated to the surface. So, how does this apply to Jesus' statement of being salt of the earth? Well, we should lift up others around us. We can do that in a variety of different ways. We can encourage others when they are struggling or feeling depressed. We can support them when they need help. We can bring joy to their lives by being kind and doing nice things for them. Romans 14:19 says, "Therefore let us pursue the things which make for peace, and the things by which one may edify another." This word edify means to build up. Here, Paul is exhorting us to build others up through love and encouragement. Well, let's look at another trait of salt with our second experiment. Elijah, what will the boys and girls at home need for this experiment? Oh, we're moving.
They will need a cup of cold water with an ice cube in it, a string, any color, we're using black as default, just a packet of salt.
Well, very good. Your experiment will go more smoothly if you use a square ice cube with flat edges rather than a rounded cube. And if you don't have any salt packets at home, you can just use about 1/8 of a teaspoon of salt. Okay, Elijah. Our first step is to place one end of the string onto our ice cube and let the other end hang on the outside of the glass.
Okay.
Well done. Since we have a second experiment, we must also have a second hypothesis. Boys, when we place the salt onto the string and the ice cube, what do you think will happen?
I think the ice cube will melt.
Elijah?
I think the same thing because remember when I said that salt melts snow? So snow is technically powdered ice. So I think that the iodinized salt will slowly melt through the ice cube.
Very interesting. And what about you, boys and girls? What do you think will happen when we place salt on the string and the ice cube? All right then. Let's test our hypothesis. Elijah, you may carefully tear open the salt packet and pour all of the contents onto the top of the ice cube and string in one pile. Well, it may take a little bit for our experiment to work, so while we wait, let's discuss some other amazing attributes of salt. Did you know back in biblical times they did not have refrigerators to store food or keep it from rotting? So instead they used salt. By rubbing salt onto their meat, they could preserve the meat for much, much longer because of salt's preserving ability. Have you ever had beef jerky? That is the same idea. The salting and drying in the meat would preserve the meat to be eaten much later. Otherwise, they would have to throw the meat away the very next day. Salt was also used as a healing agent. Ow, that seems like it would hurt. They did not have the same medicines we have today, so they would sometimes use salt in a wound to kill germs and prevent infection. Here are two other ways we can apply this symbol to our lives. As salt is able to preserve and to heal, we are also able to do the same. As God's people, we can help those in need, both physically and spiritually. Our second experiment will help illustrate this as well. Why don't we see how the experiment has gone? Boys, do you see any change?
Oh,
Yes,
there's a hole
I
in
do.
it. There's a hole in it.
There is a slight sink in the ice cube, about 1 millimeter long and 0.5 millimeter deep.
I'm going to be out of a job very soon, I can feel. There seems to be a small change to the ice cube and string, doesn't there? Why don't you try carefully lifting the string all the way up?
Oh my goodness, it's sticked.
Well, would you look at that? The ice cube has come out of the water. Remarkable. The salt melted the ice cube slightly, and the water refroze with the string inside. That gives us another picture of how we can be the salt of the earth. Like salt causes ice to melt, or like salt in a wound, the truth of God can be painful at first. That is because the Word of God convicts us of sin. Hebrews 4:12 says, "For the Word of God is living and powerful, and sharper than any two-edged sword, piercing even to the division of soul and spirit, and of joints and marrow, and is a discerner of the thoughts and intents of the heart." But when we deliver the Word of God in love, and those who hear it accept it, it is able to heal and save those in need, like this ice cube has been rescued from the water. Psalm 119, 92, and 93 says, "Unless your law had been my delight, I would have perished in my affliction. I will never forget your precepts, for by them you have given me life." Well, boys, were we correct in our hypothesis?
Yes.
Or hypotheses? And what conclusion can we make? Jesus calls us to be the salt of the earth. So let us make the world around us a better place by loving and encouraging others and speaking God's truth in love so that they might be saved. You two made my world a better place today. Thank you both for assisting me with our experiments.
You're welcome, Dr.
You're
Moody.
welcome, Dr. Moody.
And thank you for joining me once again here at Creation Lab. Don't forget to hit the like button below. And if you try these experiments at home, be sure to post a video of it on Instagram, tagged at CCGS Kids. And I hope to see you all again very soon. Goodbye!